Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel RVCCIS.info, where faculty representatives from Rock Valley College's Computers and Information Systems Department talks to you, our community at large, about things roughly having to do with information systems. Joining me, as always, is Stephanie.
Hi.
That actually, I think, is this side for this. And howdy, everybody. I'm Eric. Today, we thought we would do our updated fall 2021 buying guide. We know everybody's going back to school here soon,
Yeah.
which sounds
Yeah, and
terrifying to me.
of course, now we have a delay again, but this wonderful rock family.
The network is
Wi-Fi.
wonderful. It's just maybe it doesn't
Yeah.
perform that great all the time.
Maybe I should just stay home. Uh, so, well, I mean, we were talking in the last couple of episodes, or I can't remember, or a couple episodes ago about the operating system. And
Mhm.
I suppose that's a good place to start for most, but we've got a bunch of different options.
Yeah, I mean, so Windows and Mac, I would think are the big ones.
Mhm.
But what do you think? iOS, is that a good place even to think about trying to live in 2021?
You know, um, it just depends. I guess it depends on what you're doing. Because, like, for our CIS 102 students, you can't get all the homework done with
Right,
iOS or even Chromebook or even Linux. So you
right.
really
Or even
are
Mac
more,
because there's the access part, really.
yeah,
So,
the access, yeah. So you really want to kind of, yeah, I know. But
yeah,
if you went
I'm
into graphics, graphic arts, yeah, you would want a Mac.
right. Yeah. Or, depending, I think really you got to look at what your situation is. And if you're just taking a few classes, if there's not any purpose built software that you need, you could absolutely get away with the $300 iPad. So iOS. If you're just doing research online, that's fine. That's taken care of. If you need storage space for a couple of files, that's fine. That's taken care of. If you need Word and PowerPoint and Excel, those are taken care of. But for everybody else, you need to, a little more of a heavy duty operating system.
Yeah, yeah, especially if you're, like for our computer science students, you definitely probably want to stay away from Chrome for sure, because you're not going to be
Yeah,
able
a
to do
Chromebook
everything you
really
need to
just
do.
kind of doesn't make it. Yeah.
No, no. So, um, if you go on the networking side of things and you want to download, um,
Wireshark. I mean, like
yeah,
anything
or
even like
the
dead simple.
cybersecurity programs, or use. I guess you can use VMware and do things that way, and in the on the Mac. But a
Yeah.
lot of our cybersecurity stuff we end up using either Kali Linux or
hmm
some sort of software program on the Windows machines. So
Yeah.
it's just something to
So
think about.
which doesn't really narrow it down for anybody anymore,
No.
right? It's so
Uh-uh.
like
Mm-mm.
choose one of them.
Yeah.
What about
Yeah.
so okay, if we can't answer what kind of operating system they should be getting, is there any kind of like limitation on what kind of processor they should be getting?
Not really. Well, I mean, I guess you could go for a lower end processor if all you're going to do is surf the net and use Word. You don't really
hmm
need a high end anything for that.
Right.
Um, but if you want something that's going to be fast and responsive, and then you would want, like an Intel, at least an Intel i5 or a AMD Ryzen 5. Those are
Right.
good
Yeah, middle of the road,
CPUs.
good processors, those are. So I would say
Yeah.
for if you're gonna get an Intel, get a 10th or an 11th generation. So 11th is better than 10, but 10 is gonna be cheaper
Hmm.
than 11.
Hmm.
Um, but the way the performance goes, like so it goes 3, 5, 7, and 9. So the higher up the hierarchy you go, the faster they are. So like an i3 is the introductory one, and unless you've got super duper basic tasks or your budget is super limited, you probably want to stay away from the i3 because performance is just not going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Um,
terrible pretty much.
yeah, an i5 is a good place to start. I actually had in my possession here in 2021 a 10th generation i7 with 6 cores, and an 11th generation i5 with only 4. And actually, the i5 was faster at exporting video than the i7 from 2019, 2020, whenever the 10th gen came out. So those are really good. An i5 from the 11th generation Intel
Mhm.
is a good, like, performing good, what do you call that, budget conscious choice to make.
Yeah, and there's a website, CPU Benchmark,
Yep.
that you can use, and honestly, it's as easy as typing in Intel i5 versus AMD Ryzen 5, and it will
Hmm.
pop up, and it'll show you the specs for both, the core, all of the information for the processors, and it's actually very, very convenient and helpful.
Yeah, and
Because I
pretty
was
easy to
looking,
understand if you've never done it before. It's just a chart. Longer bars are better, shorter bars are better. It tells you right at the top. So that's pretty
yeah,
good.
but and if you're a gamer or you want to use it for gaming, then it'll tell you which one is the best.
Hmm.
And it actually is really, really pretty nice, because I was trying to figure out i5 versus i7 versus i9, because Jim Conley and I were getting new laptops in the spring. I think it was like right around April.
Yeah.
And we ended up getting an i7 because we needed the cores. We needed
Hmm.
well, I did for my VMware stuff. So
Yeah. And
just some
there's,
things to think about.
once upon a time, I would say, like, even 3 years ago, 2 years ago, there was like a perception that the Ryzen was for a bargain bin kind of
Mhm.
a, need, but that's no longer the case. And actually, a lot of the times you can find a 6 core Ryzen 5 series for what a 4 core um,
Mhm.
Intel 11th gen i5 goes for. And depending on your needs, you might actually squeeze a lot more utility out of that. So if you do a
Yeah,
lot of, if you've got a lot of different programs open at the same time, that helps out with that kind of activity. If you do, video or photo stuff, actually more cores equals more better. So
mhm.
that helps.
Yeah, and right now there's going to be a lot of sales because of school starting back
Hmm.
up, and so there'll be a lot of great sales on laptops. And usually, if it's an i5 or Ryzen 5, you want to double check if it's really cheap. There's something else that's going on, and if it's
Yeah,
an
like, or if
Intel,
it's an older version. So I
mhm,
actually
mhm,
just found an 8th generation i5. It was a Dell sale they were having, and it was their XPS 13, which is a really good looking laptop, but you
mhm.
were paying a premium essentially to get a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old laptop, and it was a total, like, it was criminal, the fact that they should have had that listed as a good deal for, it should not have been as expensive as it was.
Yeah, I know. So you just have to pay attention, and usually they'll say 10th or 11th gen right
Hmm.
after it in the description. So
Yeah, or even just like
that'll
right
help.
along with the picture, there'll be a little, you know,
Mhm.
it'll say Intel Core or something, and then it'll say 10th or 11th gen right on there,
Mhm.
and really let you know what you're about to
Yeah.
buy.
Yeah, and there's always specs. If you can't see it there, you can always click on the specs of anything. So
Hmm.
yeah, so really we don't have an opinion AMD versus Intel. I've always bought Intels. I've been fine with that. I think I bought an AMD Ryzen 7. I can't remember. But, both of them are fine.
Hmm. Yeah,
You get what you
they
pay
used to
for.
be a pretty big difference. Gamers would like the highest of the high ends for the
Mhm.
Ryzens. Everybody else would essentially by default get the Intel one. But the Ryzen chips are coming in more consumer laptops, and they're doing just fine, it looks like.
Yeah, I can always tell the gamers because 'cause they're all about AMD is the best and Intel
Mhm.
sucks, and
Because
and
they're
then I
just
just kinda laugh
more
because 'cause I'm like,
cores. Yeah, it's all that
yeah, yeah.
matters.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, and AMD actually is kinda went in on the faster, more core thing, so
Mhm.
but who's gonna spend that much money for it's a lot of money for one of those
Gamers. We're
Threadrippers.
gonna hear,
Yeah.
when we're back in class, we're gonna hear stories of, how much people have spent on their laptops, and then, I wanted to make sure I could do term paper while, you know, whatever, burning it up in Overwatch League.
Right.
So yeah, yeah.
So
So they'll spend way too much.
Yeah.
But speaking of spending way too much, then that's probably getting spent on a graphics card. How necessary is
Yeah.
that?
I usually don't care about them. I know somebody's going to be cringing about that, but I
Yeah.
usually don't care about them. But most of the time, when I'm looking for an i7, it comes with a graphics card, or a
Yeah.
Ryzen 5, 7. It'll come with a good graphics card. So, again, if you're in graphic design and into gaming, yeah, you probably want a graphics card. But
Right.
other than that, it
And
doesn't.
if you're kind of like on the fence, don't bother because that means that investment probably isn't going to pay off. With the new Intel for the 11th gen, it's called Iris Xe. So Iris is built into as part of the chipset for the 11th gen stuff. Um, and that's your built-in graphics processor, and those are usually pretty crummy, but okay. Now they make a discrete um, graphics card. It's not really a card, but a graphics processor for Intel, and it's called the Iris
Mhm.
Xe. And those tend to be pretty okay for what you're going to get. It's not going to heat up. It's not going to chew through battery as bad, and
Yeah.
it's not going to be, you know, crazy for high frame rate gaming or high pixel density stuff. But it'll do better than and certainly better than the 10th generation graphics cards, the built-in ones did.
Yeah. 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 So, I mean,
Yeah, I would
and right
say
now, for a desktop, you're not going to find an
that's true.
add-on graphics card. I mean, so honestly, right now, you're going to get what you get.
Yeah, and you know, if you're looking at a laptop and it's going to have to last you and you're going to game and all that stuff, get the most expensive graphics card you can because otherwise it's it's not going to be user replaceable. It's just going to be part of the system at that point. So you're going to have to really make the investment, but really, unless you are doing a lot of really heavy lifting for like image editing, which you probably don't need a graphics card for, really. That's processor intensive. But if you're going to do a lot of like 4K video and stuff like that, yes,
Mm-hmm.
you do want the graphics card because it will save you time, and time really is money.
Yep.
But that is such an expensive proposition in a laptop. You're probably better off rethinking why you need a graphics card in there.
Yep. 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 And honestly, if you're going to really use that computer to the fullest, you might consider a desktop at that point. But
Yes.
um, again, it'll be expensive no matter what. And then
Hmm.
if you just want an option that is heavy for graphics or whatever, you just go buy yourself a Mac. If, you
Yeah,
know,
if you maybe.
yeah, it's for any of that stuff.
Yeah, it may be smarter then. What
Well,
about
and Eric,
go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, and you were waiting to get a new Mac because of,
Yeah, for the office, I'm waiting for whatever the M1X or the next generation here is going to be. Everything on the Mac side is they're all shared now, so it doesn't matter what you get; it's going to have the same processor in there. So if you buy the cheapest, if you squint at this is going to be true. They all have practically the same processor in there. How's that?
Mhm.
So the performance difference for most ordinary people between you know, uh, a MacBook Air, the cheapest one they have, and a MacBook Pro is going to be negligible at best. So I held off because all we're doing is video stuff now because everybody's at home. We're expanding into our online offering. I like how much more students can watch the videos and then come to class and have an idea of what we're talking about. So all of this video stuff is going to happen. So I'm holding out for the M1X that's going to hopefully really crush this video out. And it really does. It saves a ton of time. I've got I'll make a long story short. Um, 2017 iMac here with an 8 gig video card in there, $600 M1 Mac Mini,
Oh,
and
right.
the Mac Mini is faster. And as a matter of fact, it's so much faster. It saves me so much more time. It was like I had to make the investment because I've earned back my $600 in, waiting for that stuff to render and process and export and all of that stuff. So, but if you don't have to do that, the cheapest one the law will allow as an M1 processor is going to be just fine.
That's awesome. Well, and then you mentioned RAM, but you mentioned that on the graphics card, but then we have
Well,
memory
but yep,
for
system
for
memory
the
is really
laptops.
yep. And that's going to be one of your biggest like either choke points. That's going to be where you feel that your laptop is going to be the slowest is because of the RAM, or
Mhm,
that's going to be the thing that makes it feel the snappiest is because of the RAM. It
mhm.
just depends how much of it you have.
Yeah, and I would say if you buy a laptop now with 4 gig, you probably made a mistake. You should
You
go
made a
higher.
mistake. Yeah. 8 gig is now the lowest I would say you can really
Mhm.
even recommend. Windows 11 is not going to do anything below 4 gig of RAM. And the floor on an operating system is so low, the experience is so bad. You should really be going with 8 gig of RAM. And if there's an offering for something that has less, just avoid it.
Yeah, yeah. And if you're kind of a super user, you could go for 16.
Hmm.
I like 8, 16, 32. Numbers like that. Sometimes you can find them with 12. That's
Yeah,
fine.
12 is really a nice because on a laptop, especially, there's very few that let you upgrade anymore.
Mhm.
So like everything is just soldered onto the motherboard. It's the problem with the LDER. But uh, so then you're just out of luck. There's no more upgrading there. 16 gig of RAM always charges you way too much on that. But every now and again, you find, especially Lenovo, they'll do 12 gig,
Yeah,
and it's
they
like
throw that in.
a sweet spot right there in the middle.
Yeah, I always feel like it's cheating me because I always want 16 and then
Hmm.
but the only reason I want 16 is for virtualization, but
Right.
uh 8 to 16 is good. 16 is going to cost you quite a bit, but it depends on how you want to do it. And if you want a computer that's going to last a long time, you buy a decent amount of
Right.
stuff.
Right.
What else? Oh, storage.
Like don't get 128 gig of storage anymore. That's way too small. I mean, if you're living on an iPad, 128 gig of storage is one thing, but if you're living on a Windows PC, 128 gig of storage is not enough.
No,
Um,
no. Well, my brother, he even had to get I think his iPhone, he got the max what he could get on the one of the new iPhones. And
mhm,
so, and I was razzing him about that, but it is true, you end up saving a lot of stuff on
yep,
things sometimes. So you just want to make sure. But
totally.
128 is definitely not enough.
No, you get like 90 gig of space out of the box, and then you start, installing Office applications or everything else, and it goes too fast. So even if you're good about like conserving all the space, it just doesn't work. I have a 2017 or something MacBook Pro that has 128 gig of RAM, and I mean, like literally, as soon as I'm done installing all of my applications, there's not enough room to run them, and then you start running into bottlenecks with swapping and storing. So it
Mhm.
it was a huge pain.
Yeah, and usually depending on the laptop itself, I always go for 256, but if I can jump up to 512, I do.
Hmm.
Some laptops, I think this one had it where it had 256 NVMe drive, and then it had a separate like terabyte
Yeah, the
standard
old
hard drive.
fashioned platter hard drive. That's
Mhm,
the way to go.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it boots up super fast. And so the NVMe is a solid state drive. So depending on what kind of drive you have, you might have the standard solid state drive where you might have NVMe, and
Yep.
then or like this one with two separate drives, which actually turns out pretty nice. But I put
Yeah, and
everything
if
on one drive.
yep. And if you
Mm.
see a laptop that still says RPM on there, that means revolutions per minute, and that means slow because that is old fashioned. I just saw one today on Deal News that said, 4 gig of RAM and a 5400 RPM hard drive. And I had to double check. I'm like, was this an accident? Was it from 2011? It was. really a brand new laptop, there's no reason to buy that. Not no
Yeah,
reason,
yeah.
but little reason.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess they're, but still 50, yeah,
That's
mm-mm. You
crazy.
not
Yeah,
when you
it's
can
absolutely
buy
crazy.
solid state drives and they'll go a lot
Right.
faster, so.
Do we need to worry about ports?
Okay, so sometimes I worry about ports, but there's a dongle that will take care
Yeah,
of everything,
and
right?
my office is full of dongles. I've got just the Apple specific ones. I've got
Oh, yeah.
the USB-C to USB-A. I've got I that's where my hard drive is plugged into. I'm not pulling that one over here, but I've actually
I
got
got
SATA to USB-C just for when I swap in
yes.
and out. So dongles are a pain in the butt, but they're necessary. I would say the biggest quality of life improvement, and I'm a jackwagon when it comes to this stuff. Like the things that annoy me probably shouldn't annoy you, but they annoy me. Is if you can find a laptop that charges over USB-C, that is fantastic because that means
Yep.
one port will get you charging. It might get you display out to another monitor,
Mhm.
and it gets you USB-C, which is super fast storage. So I would not buy a Windows laptop for me. I mean, it doesn't make
Oh,
sense for a
mine
lot of
has
people,
USB-C. Mine
but
has USB
is it USB-C with DisplayPort or
both. I
is it?
have
Yeah, those are harder to come by. I was really surprised when I was buying a Windows laptop over Christmas. Just how many said USB-C, but they were just USB-C for power delivery, not for display, and not dual channel USB-C. So that really is a limitation there that some of you, so like those of you who are in computer science, it's great because you can just and plug in and charge and that's fine. But those of you
Mhm.
who are going to do things like media, who are going to, for photography or video, you really want the full Thunderbolt USB-C because that's going to get you a lot of utility out of one port, which is pretty great.
Yeah, yeah, and Lenovo, that's the laptop we bought, and it's pretty good. It works pretty
Yeah.
well
That's the
as
only one I could
as
find that
they
had the same thing was the
mhm.
DisplayPort and charge.
Well,
But
and when going through Lenovo Business, they know what people want.
mhm. Um, do we need to
Well
worry about like a webcam or anything on there? They're usually
well, now
abysmal,
with
right?
Zoom and stuff, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they all come with webcams. This one
Mhm.
comes with, like, a shut off
Well, there you go.
right at the top.
Yeah, Macs pretty generally have crummy ones. So mine's actually right up here is a USB webcam. But I would say yes, I agree. I changed my mind that quickly. Do you see that? My deeply held lifelong belief you do not need a webcam eroded in a heartbeat because Zoom. And yeah, that's the new
This last year
reality.
changed all of that.
Yep. So do have a webcam. I will say, as an instructor, I know I shouldn't be as annoyed as I am, but I am as annoyed as I am when I have to sit on a Zoom call and half of my screen is your call, which is just black. And
Uh-huh.
I have to sit here pretending like I'm having a conversation with the
Mhm,
darkness. And it's silly. I know you have a webcam that you didn't turn on. You know, now you
mhm.
know. I know that you know that I know you have a webcam you didn't turn on. Turn the damn webcam on. Just find a clean wall someplace. Go outside
Mhm,
if you have to. Like I've taken Zoom calls from prisons before. You'll be okay.
mhm. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay, it wasn't Zoom, it was a Skype call from a prison before, but
Yeah, whatever.
doesn't
I
matter.
mean, same difference, I
Yeah.
suppose. Just
And
different
really using
platform.
Skype is like being in prison. So,
Skype.
so
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, now we're all gonna have to use Teams.
yeah, which is like being in
Yeah.
prison in space. It's worse.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, is there, so those are things to know, get 8 gig or more of RAM, get
Mhm.
256 more or 256 gigabytes or more of storage, an
Yep.
i5 or a Ryzen 5 or greater for your
Mhm.
processor. Pick your own
Yeah.
operating system. It's really
Whatever
up to
team you
you.
wanna
Yeah,
use.
I mean, it really doesn't matter. There's very, very few
Mm-mm.
things that you'll have to worry about anymore.
Mhm.
Um, are there any like brands to recommend or stay away from, or any other final buying guide tips?
Well, lately, I've been a pretty big fan of Lenovo. The and then what was the other one? Oh, HP has been pretty decent to my mom. She usually does a
Hmm.
pretty good job with them. Sometimes it goes in waves where Dell used to be a long time ago. It's been a long time since they were decent, but and then I always stay away from Alienware, and then there's mainly because they're just a lot of money.
Yeah, and actually, you can do a real simple search for Consumer Reports best
Mhm,
brands that they don't go into the specifics on things, but it gives you an idea of what to stay away from. Because like
mhm.
Sony's make really good looking laptops that have a lot of
Yeah.
problems. So, those are good things to know. Lenovo makes, in some cases, really boring laptops that live forever. Um,
Mhm.
the other thing, the last thing I would mention is go in and look at the thing, if you can.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
the problem with buying them off of like eBay is you're stuck with it in a lot of cases.
Mhm.
And if the keyboard is too cramped, or if the key travel is really shallow, or if the screen doesn't get very bright, you might be in big, big trouble. So if you can get your fingers on it someplace, you know, do that.
Yeah, yeah, because I have an extra keypad on the side, a number pad, and it's actually very nice.
Hmm.
So, and you don't know that unless you go in really, because you don't really pay attention to much to it. So, I
Right.
mean,
Right.
from pictures you can look at it, but really, do you know? So,
Hmm. And the other thing I'll say is refurbished is a great way to save a little bit of money.
mhm,
We post it on our social media all the time. By the way, you can follow us on social media at
mhm,
RVCCISInfo on Twitter, on Facebook, clearly here on YouTube. But there's a program through eBay that has a
mhm,
2-year warranty with Allstate. And if something goes wrong, you just provide your receipt, and that is
mhm.
it. So it's kind of like having a Costco membership. Costco's pretty great for that. If something goes wrong
Yeah.
in 2 years, you just bring the dead thing back. They'll look it up, and then you get to go pick one off the shelf. This is pretty close. And they
Mhm,
work with companies like Lenovo, like Dell, like HP, like Alienware is actually on there too. And if you can find, current generation laptop that they just can't sell as new because somebody like you returned it because they had different
mhm.
needs, I think that that's fine. I buy almost all of my stuff is refurb through Apple or from somebody else.
Yeah, sometimes you can look out with open box through Best Buy and Amazon
Hmm.
as well.
Yeah, that's
So,
definitely. I'm
open
thinking
box
of
is my
getting
favorite.
an M1 iPad because just this is
Somebody
stupid,
did.
but it's so much faster than, like on my iMac. So what I'll start doing is sending them to my iPads to process so I can still edit here.
Mhm.
Um, and that M1, I took it to a Best Buy. They let me install LumaFusion quick and
Oh,
see, it was crazy compared to my
nice.
2020 iPad. It was like half the time, which
Hmm.
saves me time. So
Yeah.
Rock Valley is going to buy me one of those for my professional development exploration here this year.
Nice. Yeah, you gotta go in for the extra. So there we have it. We have like a little bit of a summary of what to look
Yeah, all
for.
the things that
Um,
you can do to really like put together a
mhm.
fantastic deal on a well thought out laptop or desktop purchase.
Yeah, and there'll
Uh,
be some deals coming up. I mean, I'm
oh
sure of
yeah,
it.
so do follow us on social media. Really, I post that. Even Conley
Mhm.
used to call it Eric's deals of the day because I
Yeah.
post so many of them on there. But there's a ton of good stuff happening. As a matter of fact, Amazon right this week has a Lenovo Flex 5. It's their, like you can fold it into a tablet,
Yeah.
which you would never do,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. But with a Ryzen 5, a 6 core, 8 gig of RAM, 512 hard drive, $600, which is
Oh, that's
crazy good.
really good. Everybody should
Yeah.
go buy it. It's super
Just to
good.
have another one hanging around. I
Don't
might. I
yeah,
really
don't
won't.
send me the link, I'll buy it.
But you can find all of those on our social media. You can also like and subscribe and leave us a comment down below. You can let us know what your favorite brands are, if you've had any
Mhm.
issues with any of those brands, and any of your other buying tips, let us know down below. So that has been our laptop buying guide. Do join us next time around. We will have our kind of security checkup for 2020. Um, and you can always find all of that stuff here on our channel on YouTube and again on Facebook and Twitter. So, on behalf of Stephanie, myself, Eric, and the rest of the Rock Valley College community, stay safe and stay sane out there, everybody. And maybe go refresh that laptop for fall.